Hey up everybody, and welcome back to the Audio Cycling YouTube channel, where today we're going to be taking a look at the Volta Algarve. It starts tomorrow, as does the Ruta del Sol, but obviously George is pointing out over here that the start list still isn't complete, so that one will be done hopefully today, but if it comes out a bit too late I might not be able to do that, so just beware of that. And yeah, thank you for the orders of the wall charts. I'll put a link to them in the description down below if you want to go pick yours up so you can fill out your teams in the warm-up championship. Of course, this is one of those races, the Volta Algarve, and let's firstly take a look at the stage profiles. It's a 5-stage race, and it's a little bit different to the past 2 years, which have had the same sort of parcours. Stage 1 is going to be a sprint. I think we had this stage last year on stage 1. Stage 2 up the now pretty famous for this race Alto de Foya, which is 8.5 kilometers at 5%. I'm not sure if that's the whole climb. I think it is. The final ramp is more like 7%, but it's not the most selective climb, and generally there aren't huge time gaps there. But you never know. It really depends on the wind direction and the weather as well, and who decides to set pace. Stage 3 will be a sprint more than likely. Stage 4 I think will be a sprint. Perhaps some insinuation that it could be a breakaway stage as well. It depends on the composition. It could well be, but I'm leaning more towards a sprint. And then stage 5 we have a time trial, which is a pretty tough one, with a final 2.1 kilometers averaging 9.3%, 20 kilometers long in total. So that's a pretty tough time trial, and that will realistically be where the GC is decided, which is obviously why some of the big GC players in this race are also very good time trialists. Jonas Vingegaard is the most expensive rider at 26 credits. Is he going to be worth it? I'm not overly sure, because if everything were to go perfectly right, and he were to win the time trial and stage 2 up Alto de Foya, win the final general classification points as well, and the daily GC points between stage 2 and stage 5, he would get like 700 points. But that's if everything goes perfect, but I'm not saying that it will be, because I'm not really sure why Jonas would be in particularly great form this time of year, but it is what it is. He's obviously smashed Gran Camino at this time of year before, so there's no reason why Jonas won't be winning this race. It just depends on whether you think that's worth it. For me, Wout van Aert could be better value for money, considering that, okay, he's roughly the same price, but he will potentially be competing in the sprints, because if he does compete in those sprints and gets bonus seconds, that could be very influential towards him winning the overall general classification. I would say the only thing that has detracted from me wanting to pick him is that in Classica Heian yesterday, won by Michał Kwiatkowski, Wout van Aert didn't look that great. So that's a little bit of a concern for me as to how he will fare on the Alto de Foya. Possibly that could mean that he might struggle up there, but I think realistically he is a very good choice, because he can compete in the time trial, free sprints, and maybe hang on for a decent general classification. So in my eyes he makes more sense than Jonas, although Jonas I think has a better ability to finish higher up in general classification. Primoz Roglic is 8 credits cheaper than Jonas. He generally has a better sprint at the end of a climb, so that'll be very useful for stage 2. I'd say his time trial is a little bit worse, but it's still really good compared to Jonas's. So I think that Roglic is still a good choice. It just depends on whether you think, is he going to be in good form for the Volta Algarve? He seems more and more focused now on just like the Grand Tours and doing kind of like a Geraint Thomas preparation, where he only really does well in the warm-up race beforehand and then the Grand Tour, and these pre-season races, no offence, he doesn't seem to do that well in, but that might just be me kind of trying to reinforce my own thinking. But I think that Roglic is still a good choice, and he is still going to be one of the favourites for GC, absolutely. Almeida, very similarly, he's got a good time trial, he's got a good sprint, so I see no reason why Almeida shouldn't be fighting for the podium places alongside probably Jonas and Roglic realistically. Maybe Wout could get up there as well. De Lee, obviously there's 3 sprints in this race. De Lee He's not the fastest sprinter in the world. He's definitely more of a versatile sprinter, but I think that he should be finishing top 5 in all those sprints, and that's pretty safe. Is that the most value for money? He'd be getting, at a minimum, kind of 80 points per sprint, plus kind of daily points in the end of tour points for the points classification, more than likely. I mean, he might be getting somewhere towards 300 points realistically. I think that possibly Almeida could be a better choice from a value per money perspective at 16 credits. 14 credit riders, you've got Arensman and Binny, so you've got a similar dilemma of, do you go with the guy who can climb and time trial, or do you go with the sprinter? I think that, the further down the GC list you get, the less points you're getting, obviously. I think that Arensman doesn't have the biggest kick, but I think he should be leading the Ineos Grenadiers in this race. I don't really see who else, other than maybe Ganna, but I think he'll just be on more try to survive up Alto de Foya and then try and do a really good time trial as well. But maybe Ganna sprints as well. That's also a possibility. Arensman, I think he should be a top 10 candidate here. I think realistically something like 6th or 7th in GC, which gets you like 150 points or something like that. And then the time trial, well, he'll get another, at least 50, I'd say. So he's up to 200. And yeah, I think he could definitely get towards 300 points. And I think Binny could as well. It really depends on the sprints. The sprinting field isn't actually that great here. So I think that Binny's got a good chance of getting some top 5s across the board. Although in the, Figueroa Classic just the other day, won by Morgado, Binny was in that group and he sprinted and he still got beat by like Vatsek and Watson and even maybe Rui Costa or something. So I'm not really sure what to make of his sprinting at this time of year. It doesn't seem that great, but he should still be alright. 12 credit riders, Alaphilippe, he'll be great on stage 2, but I'm not sure how his time trial will be on the last stage. So I'm not sure if he'll be the best value, but I think that he'll still be netting you a couple or a few hundred points. As Ganna's an interesting one, because I doubt he'll do that well on Alto de Foya. I reckon the time trial is going to be hard just with the climb in there, so I'm not sure if he'll win that. He might come atop, might say be 3rd or something. But then he's going to need to sprint to make up those extra points. And with Watson here, I just don't know who they're going to be sprinting for. So I'm not overly sure about Ganna. He's going to have to do a really incredible performance, I think. But in the Figueroa Champions Classic, he was very strong, launching off the front on that final lap. And I think that's definitely indicative of some good form. Gregoire is an interesting one. He's a bit like Alaphilippe, apart from... but honestly, Gregoire's TT is quite good when you look at his record of time trials. I'd say it's kind of similar to Alaphilippe's. So I think that both of these are in the similar camp of, yes, they'll do very well on stage 2 because they've really got really good kick. I'd say they're both more punchers than climbers. And they'll just have to limit their losses on the TT. And in the sprints, they won't be doing that much. Kuss, I think, will just be a domestique, realistically, for either Wout or Jonas. Jordi Meus, I could put an argument forward that he's the best sprinter in this race. He doesn't have the best lead out, but I think that in Bessèges, that first stage, he looked really good. And I think that Meus could be... I would be surprised if he left the week without getting a stage win, personally. So I would be picking Meus. I think that he's a very safe sprinter for this race, and at half the price of Wout as well. It's very good value. Morgado, very good pick as well. UE Team Emirates, I think will probably win Team GC because they've also got Jan Christen here. So I think that Morgado's good. It really depends, if he hangs on up stage 2, because I just don't know how he's going to compete against GC riders. We just haven't had the data to see that sort of performance before. Morgado, he's an okay time trialist as well, but is that going to be enough? I would say that I'd prefer Meus because he provides a bit more certainty about the sprints. Morgado's got inherently more risk involved, but if you're willing to take that risk, I think that Morgado could pay dividends big time, especially if maybe he sprints as well, because he is pretty fast. It wouldn't surprise me if he got involved in this sprints. Vatsek, I think, is really good. He's obviously in fantastic form. I think he'll do great on the TT. He climbs really well. He could sprint as well in some of the stages. I think that Vatsek is a really good choice. He's like Wout van Aert, apart from half the price. So Vatsek's really good for me. So is Van Wilder. I think realistically he should be trying to get a top 5 in this race. And I think he provides a similar sort of rider to Almeida, apart from he's 4 credits cheaper. So if you're looking to save a bit of money, if you can't afford Almeida or Roglic, I think that Van Wilder and Vatsek provide a good alternative for you. But 10 credit riders, you've got a lot of climbers here who, because they can't time trial, won't be that worth it. Guys like Bardet, Rui Costa, Groschark, they'll probably just be a domestique. So will Kelderman. Turns is actually in pretty decent form, but anyway, let's go a bit more chronologically. You got some sprinters in here, obviously Dainese, Fretin, Leitao, Michels, and Casper van Uden. Honestly, they're all pretty good. Fretin won the Classica Almeria just the other day, so he's clearly in good form, so I would favour him just a little bit more. Dainese's really fast, Leitao's really fast, like they're all good. It's hard to split them apart unless you were to look at their lead-out trains, which I would argue Dainese's is probably the strongest. Leitao is looking really strong, though. He won, was it Trofeo Palma he won earlier this year, something like that. Michels is a bit more of a versatile sprinter, but still really fast. 3rd at European Champs last year, let's not forget that. Yeah, they're all pretty good choices. I would slightly favour Fretin just because he got that win the other day. Kung has done well in GC in this race in the past. Again, very similar to Ghana. He needs to hang up Alta de Foya. I doubt he'll be cracking the top 10 there. He'll just be trying to limit his losses to sort of within 20 seconds. And then he needs to do well on the TT. I doubt he'll sprint, so arguably it could be better just to go with a sprinter. But there are some other GC options here, like I would say Paulus, Turns, and I know you're going to hate me, but Tiberi as well are all good choices because I think that Paulus was working for Costa the other day at the Figueira Championship Classic for whatever reason. Paulus is good because he can time trial and he's got a pretty decent kick for stage 2. Turns is in really good form from Bessèges, and yeah, I think that he could be top 10 in GC, and I think, well, maybe it depends on how he does on the TT. And Tiberi, Tiberi is a good pick, but I won't dwell too much on him. Tratnik, he was very good in this race last year. He was 6 credits last year, but he is now a domestique probably for Roglic, I think, unless Roglic decides just to not bother, in which case Tratnik would be a good choice. But I'd say overall that Paulus, Tiberi, or one of the sprinters is one of the better choices to be going with. The 8 credits riders, there's not that many I like. I would say Brutamesso for the sprints, Bahrain Victorious say in their press release that they're trying to get him a podium place on one of the sprints, so that's his aim. Catania will do a good time trial and maybe he can hang on out of the Foyer to finish top 15 in GC. Kristen, a very exciting choice as well. Yui, like I said, with Almeida and Morgado and Kristen, I think they should be doing very well in Team GC. Kristen could do a decent time trial. Could he finish inside the top 10? I think he could do, but I think more realistically like a top 15. You have some sprinters in here, like Abner Gonzalez, for example, could be an okay choice as well. And there's also Sam Watson at the bottom here. It's a lot of 8 credit riders, actually. Voisard, top 15 in GC, because he can time trial a little bit as well for Tudor, but there's also Alaphilippe, so who's going to be the leader there? I'm not too sure. Schachmann, it's one of I think it's his first race for Soudal Quickstep. And, in theory, he's a very good choice, but he's had a bit of a rocky year. And I'm not overly too sure. Brieric Roland, just to shout out, another French wonder kid up and coming. I'm not sure how he'd do in this race, but given that there's Gregoire here, so I think he'll just be a domestique more likely than not. Quentin Hermans was sprinting the other day at Figueira Championships, so maybe he'll sprint for Alpecin-Deceuninck. They might go with somebody else, but that's about it. There's just kind of a lot of variation here in this 8 credit area. And then into the 6 credit riders, there's a mix here of kind of a Portuguese continental teams and some kind of like World Tour teams as well. So you have, I think Piet Alligaert will be leading out Fretin. Asgreen actually, if he climbs okay, which he has done in the past, and then does a decent time trial, he could certainly be worth it. Bayer may sprint for Alpecin. It could be either him, Quentin Hermans, or Gal Glivar. He'll be one of the 3. I honestly couldn't really tell you which one it'll be. Johan Boo is a good climber for Caio Rural, but given that his time trial isn't that great, he'll realistically be looking for a top 25, I think, at best. Remy Cavagna, just for maybe getting him a breakaways, actually. and that one-time trial where he might finish top 10. That's another option you could go with. I have Galglivar, like I mentioned, he could be sprinting for Alpecin de Koenig. I would say that Mikel Honoré is one of my favourite ones. He was 50th in the GC of Tour de Pologne last year, which is a very similar sort of parcours to this, like a punchy finish and a time trial, which was pretty tough. So I think that Honoré could be a top 20 in GC, especially since he was looking pretty good in the Figueroa Championship Classic. There's Linares. He'll be the sprinter for Tavfa. He's actually a pretty fast sprinter, not gonna lie. Misa, I think, is also, he won a Portuguese national race the other day. It was a sprint. He beat Linares in that race. So I think that Mesa is going to be a good sprinter. He was 10th in a sprint in Volta Algarve last year, so certainly watch out for him. Rafael Hayes can pull out a decent time trial every now and again, but probably not worthwhile just for the one time trial. Saying that, you could go Jakob Söderqvist, the next Swedish wonder kid as well. There's just so many wonder kids popping up this year. Jakob Söderqvist, you remember he was third in the Volta Comunitat Valenciana stage, which Boitrago won, and then Milan was second and Söderqvist was third, so he clearly climbs well. He can time trial really well as too, so I think that Söderqvist will be a very good choice as well. Pretty safe, he might get you 100 points or something like that. Tivani, the sprinter, used to ride for Corotec last year. Now he's on a continental team, and yeah, he did good in the Vuelta San Juan recently, which was now like a national level race, but he is a good sprinter. I think he'll be getting some top 10s. Van Haluva, probably a lot of people will look over him. He won a stage of a Gris Tour of Huangxi last year, if you remember. He was trying to lead out Luke Lamperty, but he ended up accidentally winning. So maybe if he sprints for himself, he might get some decent results. And then you've got Wandal, who might be a domestique, or he might come top 20 GC. The 4 credit riders I have had a decent look around, and my conclusion is that you could go with guys who are going to go in the breakaway, of which there was Jorge Galvez, and also I think it was Andre Ribeiro, who were in the break in the Figueroa Cycling Championship or whatever. So that's a good indication that they might get in the break again. You could go for assist points with Schmid or Paschkens, possibly. I would say also there's Joao Martins. Is a sprinter for Radio Popular. So he was 4th the other day in that Portuguese national race. He does sprint pretty well, and if he picks up just, some top 15s maybe, that could be worth it for you. So that's certainly one to look out for. But that's about it. I would recommend you look through these results and see who might be getting the breakaway. That might be the more fruitful way of looking at it. And then this is my team. It's not certain. There's still some changes I might make, but I've got Wout Vacek, the Italian sniper, Meus Almeida, Kristen Van Haluva, Honoré and Söderqvist. I might change this around just because, Wout is a little bit risky, but I'm not willing to really take him out. I might not go with, say, like Almeida. I might go with Morgado, and then I could upgrade these 6 credit riders up to a 10, in which case I could get Fretin in there, or I could get another GC option in, say, Paulus. And I think maybe Morgado and Paulus could be a bit better than Almeida and a 6 credit rider. Or if I wanted to be a little bit safer than Morgado, although he's in incredible form, I could go with Van Wilder. And that gives me quite a well-balanced team, in my opinion, so I'm quite happy with that. I just quite like Jan Kristen, so that's why I've got him in there. But let me know what you're thinking. I realise this is quite a long video, and you're still going to have to. You still might watch a Ruta del Sol preview after this, so I'll stop this now. Let me know what you're thinking in the comment sections down below. And all that is left to say is to stay safe out there, and I will see you in the next video. Salut!